example of this approach is the ecological approach, or the ecological school of criminology. This one, the ecological school of criminology, it was developed in the 1920s and 1930s at the University of Chicago. Now this one seeks to explain the relationship between crime and the social environment, or social and environmental changes. For example, it attempts to describe why certain areas within the city of Chicago tended to attract more criminals and also had less vigorous police enforcement. What the researchers found out there was that areas in transition from residential to business uses are most often targeted by criminals. Why? Because such areas usually have disorganized social networks that foster a weak sense of social security. For example, you have Mtangire here. Mtangire is an area of transition between rural Lilongwe and the urban Lilongwe. And you tend to have more criminals in Mtangire because it is an area of transition. It hasn't yet reached that urban status like Area 47, where you have organized structures. Police are patrolling Area 47, but I doubt whether you will have police patrols in Mtangire, right? So thieves or criminals will find it a very welcome habitat in Mtangire because they know they will not be arrested. Whereas in Area 47, chances are they will be visited if they conduct their criminal activities there. Another social structural approach is the conflict school of criminology. Now this school traces its roots to the Marxist theories that saw crime as an ultimate product of conflict between classes under the system of capitalism. Karl Marx wrote his book Das Kapital, where he expounded the theory of the conflict between classes of people, the capitalists versus the proletariat, those who had the power and money versus the poor who did not have power and money. So in this system, Marx looks at the criminal element as or he looks at the laws, the criminal laws that are set up as the laws which are being set up by the rich in order to perpetuate the status quo. So instead of distributing wealth equally, certain laws will be set up by the rich so as to deprive the poor of a share of the resources. So criminology conflict theory suggests that the laws of society emerge out of the conflict rather than out of consensus. It holds that laws are made by the group that is in power to control those who are not in power. In fact, Marx went further to suggest that the rich created football in order to exploit the poor. He said that football was the opium, was the chamber of the poor. You give the poor people stadiums and football, they will get even the little that they have, right, to go and pay to watch football. But who becomes rich out of football? Is it the poor? No. Even the footballers themselves, they are exploited. It's only now. If you ask the Kinapiris of this world, Homan, Marunga, and so on and so forth, right? Those guys would have been multi-millionaires now, right? But at the peak of their talent, when they could have gone out in the one-party era, what was happening, right? There would be a code to John Temple's office, right? To choose between being patriotic to the country and being labeled Okira. Kinapiri got a lucrative contract in Saudi Arabia. Did the government allow him to go? No. So that is what Marx was saying, that we're looking, you see, football is the opium of the poor. You give guys a lot of football, they will forget about everything else, right? Even now, you see, how many times do people bet for Manchester United and what have you, right? Even in these amounts which they say, winner, is it 20 million? Do you think the betting companies are stupid to give somebody 20 million? How much do they get themselves? Billions. So that's what Karl Marx was insinuating, right? That laws are made in order to protect the rich. So the conflict theory proposes, as do other theories, that those who commit crimes are not fundamentally different from the rest of the population. They call the idea that society may be clearly divided into criminals and non-criminals. So, according to Marx, well, what you have to do is just understand what the society says about whether someone is a criminal or someone is not a criminal, or it depends on the way someone reacts to society. For example, right now there is a debate raging on Martha Chisholm. Others are saying no, by those utterances that she made. She committed a criminal offense. Others are saying no, Chizuma here was a lonely woman expressing something in confidence to a confidant. Now that confidant decides to make public a conversation between two people. Between those two, who is the criminal? Now, government says no, it is Chizuma. It is not the confidant, because they have never touched the confidant. Right? So this is what Karl Marx is saying. What is government protecting? Is it protecting what the masses are perceiving, or protecting themselves? So you see, this is a typical example of the Marxist theory of criminology. All right? Conflict school of criminology. Anyway, since the drama is still unfolding, at the end of it all we will see. Right? I was thinking, for example, until yesterday, that maybe these people have got a point. But then the government and so forth. But then, yesterday I said, wait a minute, Prof. Do you know how ACB investigates? I told myself, I don't know. So I said, supposing that was one way of how ACB investigates issues, would Martha be faulted if that is one way of her approach to investigations? Under those circumstances, I would fault the guy who leaked. Because I don't think that when these guys are being told information about someone who is suspected of committing a crime, I don't think that it is something always in writing and so on and so forth. I'm sure they sometimes talk, right? And when they're talking, would someone be, are they being taped, and is what they are discussing being broadcasted? I doubt it very much. So I convinced myself that no, I think there must be something better that government should be telling us here. Because, okay, fine, I mean, she may have committed, but supposing that was her way of gathering information, I might be crazy, but
it makes sense.
Yes.
I might be crazy, but I think that thing may stick or it may not stick, depending on how clever Chizuma's lawyers will be. So many conflict theorists and others argue that minorities and poor people are more quickly labeled as criminals than members of the majority and wealthy individuals. So in the Marxist theory, right, the conflict theory, usually the poor and the minorities, they are the ones who are labeled as criminals. If the majority and the wealthy, very rarely would you label them as criminals. Then the other two theories are the critical criminology or radical criminology theory. These ones, the critical criminology or radical criminology, they share the conflict criminology debate or Marx. This one came into prominence around the 1970s. And what it did, the radical criminology, was trying to explain contemporary social upheavals. Because in the 70s, you better put where they will not steal you.
I'll put in the reception.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
During the 70s, radical elements started showing up in society. I'll give you an example. Before 1970s, or 1972 to be exact, the world was very peaceful. When you went to Chileka Airport, for example, you were treated like a king. You would wait for a plane, and then you take your bag. When the plane has arrived, you go to the counter, they take your bag, and you know, in fact, you moved with your bag up to the foot of the plane. Then you gave your bag to some guys who put it in the hold, right? And then you went up the steps into the plane and you were waving. Why? These issues of checking, so they were not there, right? Then, the Bader-Meinhof gang in Germany decided to hijack the LL plane carrying members of the Israeli Olympic team. I don't know, I've forgotten. Either they blew it up or they threatened to blow it up and so on. Right? That was the beginning of the change. People suddenly realized that, well, look here, you see. People can now hijack planes. So planes were no longer safe. So all these things were put in place now to start screening and all the rest of it. To stop criminal gangs from hijacking. Now, the Bader-Meinhof guys did not look at themselves as criminals. They looked at themselves as liberators, as freedom fighters. Here was the Zionist state, butchering Arabs. Because during that same time, there was the first Arab-Israeli war, right? Where Israel, within 6 days, it inherited all the Arab armies, right? That did not please certain people. And he declared it expanded, it occupied the Gaza Strip and the whole of Palestine, right? It occupied the Holy Land in Jerusalem and so on. So these gangs started what they called the jihad against Israel. So that was the beginning. As if that was not enough. In China, a group calling itself the Gang of Four wanted to topple Mao Zedong. In Japan, a group calling itself Black September sprang up also. So there were all these radical elements, right, committing crimes, which culminated in the 9/11 bombing of the Twin Towers in Washington, D.C. by Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda. So this is called radical criminology. Radical. Right? These are radicalized people, right? The Boko Haram, right, are radicalized. They say, no, Western education is bad. That's what it is. Eh? Book, right, is haram. You shouldn't be reading Western books and so on. So it started in the 70s, I said, explaining the contemporary social upheavals at that time, and that has continued, and so on and so forth. So in this one, critical criminology relies on economic explanations of behavior and argues that economic and social inequalities cause criminal behavior. When 9/11 happened in 2003, September, I was the deputy delegation to the Malawi to the UNESCO General Conference, and I was one of the 9 people who were chosen to write the draft resolution to be adopted by the General Conference on 9/11. And we had some torrid time to describe to condemn. Some of us, being naive, we thought, well, this is a walkover, so let's just write things. But we underestimated the sentiments. Some colleagues from South Africa and from the Arab world were not in favor of certain wordings, because to them 9/11 was a criminal act, all right, but we have to look at the reasoning behind 9/11. Would these young fellows be willing to, because they knew that if they hijack a plane and ram it into a building, they also would die. So what caused them to sacrifice themselves much as they were sacrificing other people, right? Then some people say, no, it's because of inequalities and so on and so forth. The Arabs feel that they are shortchanged by Israel and the West and so on and so forth. So that has radicalized them and so on and so forth. So we're looking even at Osama bin Laden himself. That the bin Laden family actually is one of the richest families in the world. Right? So why should a son of hello? I already bought. Thank you. So the question was, why should bin Laden, a very, very rich young man, a trained disciplined, right, take up arms and live in caves? So anyway, eventually we said, well, okay, despite all these guys went to excesses, right? This act is purely criminal, right? Because you can't explain social inequalities against what they have done. Those people who they have killed and those buildings which they have, were those people responsible for, or if we are saying it is Israel, right? Why did they not go and bomb Israel, right? And so on, right? So this school asserts that, like conflict school, the law has an inherent bias in favor of the upper and ruling class, and that the state and its legal system exist to advance the interests of the ruling class. The critical criminologists argue that corporate, political, and environmental crimes are underreported and inadequately addressed in the current criminal justice systems. So these guys say, look here, there are crimes which are committed by corporate organizations. But those corporate organizations have not been taken to task. For example, when I was coming here during lunch hour, Zodiac was carrying out a commentary. And the commentary which they are carrying out is about some desperate people, despots, who are the product of the Kamuzu system of general farming, right? Kamuzu under press agriculture started general farming. And general farming took tenants from all over the country into press farms. Now those farms, most of them have been sold off, right? So those people have been displaced. They have nowhere to stay, right? The only place that they know are those farms. Where they came from, Buchoro, Kumranje, Ndikare, they don't even know the places, right? So in Kasungu, these people were displaced and they encroached into Zambia, right? And they were pushed back. And now they are staying in Timisa Satinatake, right? On the border, right? So that is a corporate crime. Because when general farming was employing these people, they should have put in place amenities, right? To empower these people. Like schools and clinics and decent housing where they were going to be staying And even part of the estate should have been their own parcels of land that they should be staying on and at least make their own living. So that is corporate crime that I can think of here, right, in Malawi. Right? Political. I mean, we all know, you see, the Sattar issue and so forth, right? Politicians are the ones who are benefiting from these kickbacks and so on and so forth, right? Environmental crimes. In Nigeria, for example, the issue between the government, federal government, right, and some of the radicals in the river states, right? It's because Shell Company, Mobil Oil, Exxon and the other companies, right? They were given lucrative deals to extract oil in the Niger Delta. What did they do there? When they were given those deals, that place was pristine, full of fish and so on. The villagers were living happily. But then these guys started spilling oil all over. So much so that now all life, marine life in those areas is dead. And then when Ken Saro-Wiwa and others started making noise to say, no, these oil companies have got to pay for the environmental damage that they have done, what happened? The government rounded up the Ken Saro-Wiwas and so on and so forth and killed them. But the environmental damage is there.
So is that combined with crime?
Environmental crime, yes. And the environmental crimes are being committed all the time. In fact, one of the reasons why the Mozambique government did not buy Mutharika's idea that they should open the Shire Zambezi waterway was that Mutharika did not have any politics at stake. But Gebuza had. Supposing there was a spillage, there was an accident, right, on the Zambezi, right, even on the Shire, right, and then one of the barges carrying a lot of oil, right, spews the oil into the Zambezi River. Who was going to lose the elections? Was it Mutharika or Gebuza? Yeah, so he was smart enough to say, Mkuru, this was no, right? Because these environmental crimes which are being committed, right, they are being committed silently by these giant companies. They are puking out a lot of obnoxious gases into the atmosphere and so on. We are all suffering now, right? For the first time in Dubai, the Middle East, right? There were heavy rains in a day which they normally would get in 3 years, right? That means that the weather now is going upside down, right? But would we say that maybe those guys are the ones that are responsible? Maybe not. Right? Maybe it's because of climate change somewhere in China and so on and so forth. Because of industrial activities somewhere. So they are saying that well, these corporate, political, and criminal crimes, right, they are underreported and inadequately addressed in the current criminal justice system. If you want to punish these companies, you will be lucky if you win the case. But sometimes you don't. Right? If you are lucky, well, you may win. Right? But it takes quite a lot of efforts and money in order to win these cases and so on. Then feminist criminology. Feminist criminology emphasizes the subordinate position of women in society. That women suffer in silence because of their subordinate position. According to feminist criminology, women remain in a position of inferiority that has not been fully rectified by changes in the law during the late 20th century. Feminist criminology also explores the ways in which women's criminal behavior is related to their objectification as commodities in the sex industry. So women remain in an inferior position. They are sexually harassed and sometimes they are treated as objects of sexual pleasures in offices and things like that. So these are also criminal acts. When we talk of human trafficking, for example, most of the trafficked human beings are young girls who go to places like Yemen, for example, where we are told that they are subjected to all sorts of sexual harassments and so on and so forth. That is criminality. Other using the social structural approach have studied gangs. There are lots and lots of criminal gangs that have sprung out because of the way society is structured. Most of these gangs are as a result of deprivations in the area in which these young fellows live. So in area 23, for example, you had some gang there 2 years ago, terrorizing the area. I don't know what it was called, I've forgotten the name, but there was a criminal gang there. There was another gang called Baghdad somewhere, right? Also terrorizing, right? Someone in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, was saying he owns some minibuses, but he says, look, there, if you want your minibus business to thrive, right, you have to buy your ways through gangs, right? So if an area is controlled by a certain gang, you have to pay something, right, for them to allow you pay to government, all right, but on top of that, you have to pay passage to that gang and so on, right? So gangs are there. And then juvenile delinquency. These youths who commit crimes, it is as a result again of the social structure. Most of them do not commit those crimes on their own. They form gangs. Right? Even in schools, when I was teaching, you had some gangs, not that they were too criminal, but it was just some truancy of some sort, right? Like there was a gang called Ogugu. They got that name from Chiunwa Achebe's Things Fall Apart. So there is a secret society there, right, of the masquerades, and they were calling themselves Ogugus. So these guys, they were also calling themselves Ogugus, right? So they would do certain behaviors which are not all that good at school, you see. Like stealing piglets. We had a piggery at the school. So sometimes when we have cooked beans and vegetables and we are not very happy with that, right, then a piglet will disappear. Then we'll be wondering, this piglet, they were 7 piglets, now we have got 6. What has happened? Right? The Ogugos have stolen that one. So when I became a boarding master, I got to the bottom of it, and I summoned the leader of the Ogugos. At that time, I didn't even know his name, right? So I was asking his fellows, this guy, what do you call him? I was pleasantly surprised about his name. Right? Again, he had taken the name from one of Gwengwe's books. There is a guy there called Mpandazina. So he called himself Mpandazina. He's Mpandazina. I said, he must have been there. Right? No, we don't know him, he's Mpandazina. So I called him, Mpandazina, what is happening? So I had to dig his background. And I discovered that this boy, one, he didn't have parents, right? He was being raised by foster parents and so on and so forth. Fizi and Magripilia, district council and Katabe, and so he was from Mikoma, and things like that. Right? So I realized, I must approach him differently. Right? So my approach was not trying to criminalize him and so on and so forth, but trying to tell him that, well, look here, see, not everything is lost. Right? If anything, you should be working hard so that he gets out of this fix that he's in and so on and so forth. So because of that, we became quite good fellows until he left. And then we lost contact. Okay, so that is the social structural approach. Now the other one is the social process approach.
So for the situation of that we had in Blantyre, like Funashpanti, the situation that was happening, can we put in feminist or criminology? Is this so?
Nachipanti, it is combination of feminists, the males trying to dominate over females, creating terror or fear, instilling fear on women. But most of it, right, is political. Right? You'll find that most of these things, they will either come up when there are elections coming. Right? Some political elements use guns to instill certain fear in individuals, right? So there are lots and lots of crimes which are committed on the political front. Right? And the municipality might be one, right? Depending on who was sponsoring it, right? If it was just they themselves and so on and so forth, then perhaps it's just feminists, right? Social process criminology.
Social
Process criminology is the next one. The first one we said was the social structural criminology. But this one is social process criminology. This one tries to explain how people become criminals. These theories, social process theories, developed through recognition of the fact that not all people who are exposed to the same social structural conditions become criminals. Because yes, people find themselves in Mtandile. They are exposed to the same conditions in Mtandile. But in Mtandile you may find the staunchest Christians there as well. Right? So why, and then the hardcore criminals. Right? So why the difference? Right? So the focus is on criminal behavior as learned behavior. For example, did I tell you about this son of a reverend friend of mine? Okay, yeah. In the 70s, there was a very strong reverend who started SCOM, Reverend Chunga. Reverend Chunga had a son in Chancellor College called Josam. Now, Josam was a very good friend of ours because we used to drink together. We when he decided to drink Chibuku, but in most cases he was drinking Kajaso, so we were not drinking together. But anyway, there were some other characters who were drinking with him Kajaso. So when he was going to school, the father, then, Reverend Chunga, was the chairman of the Central Tender Board. So all government tenders, he was the chairman. So he was a very, very strong and influential man, you see. But his son thought that he was very mean because he was giving him only provisions to college, not money, because of his drinking behavior. So one time when he was going to college, he decided to come up with an ingenious plan to make his father give him money. So at night, he went into the ceiling. Right? The trap door was through the garage, right? So he went to the garage and he went into the ceiling and crawled up to the bedroom where the father was. So when he heard his father snoring at night, then he shouted in a loud voice, "Chunga, Chunga, why have you forsaken your son? Josan, you don't give him any pocket money. Why?" So the Reverend, hearing a voice from the ceiling, he thought it was Jesus or God. So he fell down and started praying and so on and so forth. And then Joseph quietly went out and into his bedroom. And then in the morning, the father called him. "Joseph, can you come here? How much money do you need?" "No, today, well, I'll give you all the money. And then the driver will take you to college. Don't worry."
Well, this time now.
Joseph was a character.
Is it alive?
No. He started drinking too much.
Okay.
Even when he finished, he continued drinking and so on and so forth. And then either he was involved in an accident or he injured himself. So he had the wound. So he wasn't caring for the wound, right? So it became cancerous. Yeah, and then the cancer spread, and so on, and he passed on. But even before he passed on, unfortunately, he found us when we were teaching at Livingstone. But we had a problem. He was a friend, but we were saying, now, if we associate with him, we're going to the Damos to drink, then the father would be blaming us, right, for taking it. So we, as much as possible, tried to avoid it. Fortunately for us, where the reverends were staying and where the school was, at least there was some distance, right? So because of his leg, he could not move to our place, and so on. But anyway, he was a nice guy. Yeah. So anyway, so the social process, criminology, looks at how people become criminals. I'm not saying that Joseph was a criminal, he was just a juvenile. Because beyond that, I mean, he was a harmless guy. Yeah. So, according to Sutherland, right, he says when a person become a criminal, they do so because of the contacts with criminal patterns and also because of isolation from anti-criminal patterns. So you can become a criminal because of contact with criminal people or patterns, or because of isolation from anti-criminal patterns. Because sometimes you find, for example, you are not, you get into contact with criminal guys, right? But also you are deprived getting into contact with anti-criminal people, right? Who can straighten you up. So that way you become a criminal. Then there is a political criminology, which we talked about. Political criminology is similar to other camps in the area. It involves study into forces that determine how, why, and with what consequences society choose to address criminals and crime in general. Those who are involved with political criminology focus on the causes of crime, the nature of crime, and the social and political meanings that are attached to crime, and crime control policies, including the study of the basis upon which crime and punishment is committed, and the choices made by the principals in criminal justice. So political criminology is a mouthful, right? It looks at the politics of crime. In political criminology, for example, the other day, I was watching on YouTube an old narration of the Rhodesian War, right? So the narrator was talking of Rhodesian forces, meaning the soldiers of the Rhodesian army, right? And then he was calling the Gabes and so on gorillas, right? So you can see there, right, the politics, right? That the others, right, are soldiers, right? The opponents are gorillas, right? So these ones are lawful people, right? The other ones are criminals. So you can see there, right, the politics coming in, right? But the gorillas were not looking at themselves as gorillas, right? They, according to them, they were waging a holy war, chimurenga, a war against the occupying forces. Right? To them, the Zimbabwe, the Rhodesian forces were occupiers. They were criminals, right, who had taken their father's land, right? So it depends on which side now you are looking at, right? In terms of political criminology. In 1992, I was attending a UDF rally at the Biwi Triangle there, right? And some character from Mangochi was making some pronouncements, and he declared that Kamuzu was a criminal because he had fished all the lake, all the fish from the lake. Meaning Lake Marombe. He says, look here, Lake Marombe, there are a lot of fish there. Dear Kamuzu. He was narrating that in Yao. Fished all the lake, all the fish from the lake. So this guy is a criminal. Right? But then the Charles Camp says, right, we are looking at these guys, the UDF and the Afford, as criminals. Right? And also on it. And so on. So, political criminology is quite an interesting term, right? For example, in Islam, when someone has done something against the Prophet or something like that, then an ayatollah can declare a fatwa, a death sentence against that someone. Right? So they say that whoever kills that somebody, right, he hasn't done a crime, right? In fact, he has bought himself a passport to heaven. So when Salman Rushdie wrote his book, The Satanic Verses and so on, right, Ayatollah Khomeini declared a fatwa on him. And since Khomeini had died, that fatwa has not been lifted. So that's why it was last year or something like that, someone nearly killed him, right, fulfilling that fatwa. Right?
Ayatollah is a rank.
Ayatollah, that's the supreme spiritual ruler, leader in Iran. Right? So you have got the shehs and so forth, Marak Mao, and the Ayatollah. Right? Just like in the Catholic, right? You have got the fathers, the bishops, the cardinals, and then the Pope. Right? So the Ayatollah is more or less like the Pope. Right? But that one is confined to Iran. Right? It doesn't mean that an Ayatollah in Iran would declare certain things in Iraq. In Iraq, they also have their own hierarchy. In Saudi Arabia, they also have got their own hierarchies. In fact, in Saudi Arabia, you don't have an ayatollah, right? Because the supreme leader there is the king. Right? In Iran, initially, right, you had the Shah of Iran, right? But he was toppled by these religious guys. Right? So instead, in place of the Shah, you have the ayatollah as the supreme leader. These ayatollah, in fact, there are several ayatollahs, right? But the supreme one is called the Grand Ayatollah, right? Who is above the rest. Right? And when the revolution started in 1971, you had some ayatollahs who were roving judges. Two of them actually were moving up and down the country, sentencing people to death. There was Ayatollah Karkari and Ayatollah Shariat Madari. These two were very, very famous for sentencing people to death. All right, so
So,
yeah.
in political criminology, can you also confirm that maybe this system also is what happens during the time of maybe during time of this musician Matafari and even this one Robert Chasoa in Polytechnic can also relate to what criminology stuff?
Yeah, you could. Because some of them may have died because of their political convictions.
Yeah.
Right? Medson Sirombera, for example, right?
Yeah.
He was sentenced to death, right? But as a criminal, right?
Yeah.
Because the state said, well, he rose against the state, right? But now, people are looking at Medson Soga, maybe now, because MCP is in power, maybe they may not, but the previous regimes, right?
Yeah.
They were sympathetic, right, to Medson Sirombera, right? John Chiremwe, right? We call him a hero now, right? But the whites were after him because his lieutenants had beheaded Livingston, which was a crime, right? And a few others, they had stolen some guns and so on and so forth. So that's why political criminology is, it depends on what the society at that time, right, interprets the whole scenario, right? Someone who may be Jesus Christ, I mean, that's another example, right? Pontius Pilate, according to the Roman laws, he found Jesus Christ not guilty, right? But the Jews said, this guy is guilty. Right? He said that he would destroy the church and build it in 3 days. I mean, that is a crime, and so on. You see, so it depends, right? A lot on some of these things.
So, like the Kanyamachum is, that's a criminology. That is part of criminology.
Yes, you see, that is why we're saying that it depends. When we were growing up, right, we believed that Kanyama was the enemy number one,
Yes.
a criminal, right? And there were songs sung against Kanyama Chiume, against attacking Pakati, against this Mangoshi guy, make him tell. In fact, the women of Mangoshi used to sing songs about make him tell. Now, when they came and Menki was asked to address a Ford meeting at Biwi, the guy could hardly talk. He was stammering and so forth. So I was saying to myself, now look here, I mean, honestly, right? Is this the guy that we were being made to believe that he was a criminal, he was very dangerous and so on and so forth, right? But you see, at that time we were believing, right? Because of the situation at that particular time. Kanyama Chume himself, I attended his rally because I was curious. This guy, so he had his first rally at Masinda ground there. Oh, he created a party called the Congress for the Second Republic, right? Now, when he came onto the platform, I saw a tiny gentleman. I said, this is the guy that no, you see. So it really depends, right? So political criminology is a very, very interesting subject. Yeah? Because you honestly look at various angles to it. Yeah. So, there are terms which we already looked at the last time, like a deviant behavior, meaning behavior which violates social norms. And then we looked at delinquency, right? Meaning one who fails to do what is required by law or by duty. When such failure is minor in nature, then it can qualify as a delinquent behavior and not criminal behavior. And the most common use of that term is when it is referring to minors, juvenile delinquents. Criminal behavior by juveniles. Then we looked at the crime, and we said the crime is an act or omission. By crime, we mean committing the actual crime. Omission means someone has committed a crime and you don't report that crime. You are also equally guilty.
Of failing to report?
Yes. In law. If someone has committed a crime, it is incumbent upon you to report that crime if you witnessed the crime. So if you fail to report, then you yourself are also an accomplice to that crime.
That's omission.
Yes, omission. Such as failing to give assistance to a person in peril or failing to report a case of crime. So, there is a connection between criminology, penology, and criminal law.
Connection of what?
Criminology, penology, and criminal law.
Penology
Yes.
and criminal law.
Yeah. Now, there are two twin sister branches there of criminology and penology. And these twin sisters are implemented through the agency of criminal law.
Implemented?
Yes. So when you are looking at criminal science,
And implemented by what?
through the agency of criminal law. So, okay, let us look at criminology. can be in two branches. The branch of criminal biology, which investigates biological causes of criminality. Then criminal sociology, which inquires into the effects of surroundings and environment on criminals. So you can look at the criminal behavior purely from a biological point of view, hereditary. That you will, maybe if your parents are criminals, you will also be criminals, right? Maybe if your grandparent was a thief, then you are a thief. Then people will say, this one, where has he taken this criminology from, right? So I was laughing when my neighbor was called Mtalimanja. So when you look at the history of Mtalimanja, right, in Chichewa, it means someone with a long hand. So I say, now, this guy is this surname. How do they feel about it, right? But perhaps there is another Chichewa meaning for it, right?
But most is need somebody who can easily steal.
Yeah, but I mean that I thought that was the meaning, but perhaps it has been diluted now, right?
Yeah.
It has lost that meaning, right? So people can proudly call themselves Mtalimanja, right? Because there are certain names, right, which started in that way, right? And now people are proud of those names. But in fact, initially, right, they were derogatory names, right? Mtalimanja or Gondwe. You have the Gondwes now, right? But the origin of that is someone who was lame, right? So, was dragging feet through the sand. So people would say, Padusandana Padusagondwe.
Okay.
But now the Gondwes are proud to call themselves the Gondwes, right? They have forgotten the origin of the name. Right? Penology. So, in criminology, we're saying that there are two branches there, right? The biological aspect, right, and then the sociological aspect. Then in penology, this includes the study of treatment, prevention, and control of crime. Treatment, prevention, and control of crime.
Sort of treatment?
Prevention and control of crime. Then criminal law. Criminal law seeks to implement policies envisaged by criminology and penology. So through criminology and penology, you come up with the laws, or you come up with the policies, right? So criminal law tries to implement those policies. For example, if someone has stolen a chicken, it is bad, right? So A criminal law says, well, if you have stolen a chicken, you'll be in jail for 3 years. Right? So, when you have stolen a chicken, then you are taken to court. And then the criminal law takes over, punishes you for 3 years. In general terms then, criminal law is an index of civilization because it is sensitive to the changes in social structure and it reflects the mental fiber of a given society. So criminal law changes, right, according to society. Right? There was a time, for example, when giving birth to twins was a crime. Twins would be killed instantly, or they would be thrown into the evil forest in Nigeria and so on. But as time evolves, Christianity came in and they said, no, even things, these are gifts from God and so on. So it's no longer a crime to be born a twin and so on. That is what it means that the laws, society changes. Killing somebody, in some governments, it is punishable by death, including marriage. But in some governments that have abolished the death sentence. Because supposing you find somebody not guilty and you have already killed them, are you going to bring them to life? So that is the essence, saying no, let's give them life sentence. We'll give them the benefit of doubt. Right? But the guys who are advocating for death sentence, but look here, this one has killed the other one, as the other one regained the life. So this one should also be deprived of their life, and so on and so forth. So, we would say, as the Professor Fieldman says, that criminology or criminal law is a barometer for moral thinking of society. Right? It measures the moral thinking of society. For example, there are two schools of thought on Mother Chizungu. There is the school of thought which says no, Martha committed a crime by mentioning those people that they are criminals in her audio. But there's another school of thought which says no, she was not necessarily, well, she was mentioning people, but that's neither here nor there, right? She was just expressing her frustrations against certain people and so on. And therefore, that should be treated as a civil case. Kayuni should have gone to court, right, as a civil case, not as a criminal case. Right? Let the court decide whether he has been injured or not, and let them either pepesa each other or compensate each other. Why should we treat it as a criminal case, right? And so on. So there are those two schools of thought. Right? But Kayuni is thinking otherwise. No, that is criminal. Right? Whether that is true or not, but we have seen that Kaini, maybe he was protecting himself, isn't it?
But he was protecting himself.
So those are the schools of thought that are there. Whether that was criminal or that was not criminal, it's neither here nor there. So criminologists are confronted with three major problems. One, what conduct should be forbidden, and an inquiry into the effect of the environment on these conducts. So what conduct should be forgiven?
But conduct
Should be forbidden. And an inquiry into the effect of environment on these conducts. So, for example, right? We know in the past people were cannibals. And in some places, people are still cannibals, right? So those who are cannibals, should you say that they should not eat each other?
Do we still have people who are cannibals? I don't know.
Yes. In some remote islands in the Pacific, they are cannibals. So, should we say that conduct should be forbidden? If we say that it should be forbidden, then we have to justify why that conduct should be forbidden. What condemnation is appropriate in such cases? So if people eat each other, kill and eat each other, what condemnation is appropriate? And thirdly, what kinds of sanctions are best to prevent these conducts? So if people commit some crime, right, what condemnation should we give them, and what sanction should we give? So that is what criminology tries to address. So the formulation of criminal policies essentially depends on the cause of crime and the factors correlated with the implementation to achieve the desired effect of people not committing those crimes. I think if we stop there, then we are together with our colleagues. Now, the assignment. The assignment is on page 15 of your notes called the Criminology PDF. Question number 4. Trace the development of criminology as a branch of criminal science. So there are 4 questions there. Question number 1, they are called review questions. Question number 1 is define criminology and distinguish it from penology, sociology, and criminal justice. Question number 2, explain the nature and scope of criminology. Question number 3, what do you understand about the importance of criminology from the case of Makise versus Kemp? There is a case which I skipped when I was explaining, right? So those are the 3 questions, review questions, right, of this first unit. So I'm saying you attempt to answer question 4. Trace the development of criminology as a branch of criminal science.
We just answered that question 4.
Yes. Any questions so far?
So far, so good.
Right, so
So you send it?
I've already sent
Yeah,
it.
okay.
Yeah. In fact, I've sent for you, I've sent 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 documents, right? There is a document called the Criminology Notes, which has got 58 pages. Right? Now that one, I was using it last time because I took the course halfway, right? So I was just concentrating on the theoretical aspects of criminology, right? So that's why it's 58 pages, right? And then there is criminology. Right? That is a whole set of notes prepared by this lady here, Miss Glory Nirumala. Teaching materials, right? That is where now I'm preaching from. Right? She prepared them under the sponsorship of Justice and Legal System Research Institute in Ethiopia, right? So I didn't want to reinvent the wheel because I saw that this one was quite elaborate. Right? So that's the one that we are using for ourselves. Then there is a study guide. Now the study guide is also very important, right? It is a study guide on criminology theories, introduction, evaluation, and application, right? So if I were clever, right, when I'm confronted with a question, I just go to the study guide, right? Where there are notes, abbreviated notes on each and every aspect of it. And then I write my essay, right? If I were clever, right? Yeah, so the study guide is very, very important also.
Yeah.
Right? Because it gives you, to start with, it introduces the theories of criminology, the various terms and so on and so forth, and then it gives you key concepts, right? And then some questions. Chapter review and then some questions.
Yeah.
Right? So That is also very important for you, right? Then there is a small document which I've not even managed to code it anything. It's just called T, right? It has got some definitions and so on. It's about 12 pages, right? So it's just some definitions and then some critics of some early scholars who we will be talking about. Right. Okay, so thank you very much.
But this one is showing that Tumbani is responding for you. So you will receive, I think so. But not an document.
Sorry?
I can see how I have received it.
See, huh?
There's no like link about the document. Just like an link email. But if you can open that, it shows that we are responding to this one.
Maybe the same way. That's how I received it.
So what does that mean? You haven't received it?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
Yeah, so maybe because there are 3 documents, so
So that's why I said no, it's just like showing that someone have received something
yeah.
and they have forwarded to us, but
No, Dumbani,
yeah.
I sent it to 4 people.
Okay.
Yourself,
Yes.
Dumbani,
Yes.
and the Yunri Odia.
Ah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go on to Yunri Odia, they are there.
Okay.
Right? If you go to your email, they should be there. So there is no excuse. Because sometimes students have said, oh, it's guaranteed. Say, okay, go to the portal. Right? I'm sure by now you have been given passwords.
Yeah.
We don't yet.
This one not yet, but today.
Okay.
Yeah, I've received the email of myself, how I can enter it. So I think I'll try.
Yeah, so if you went to the man, they would
Okay.
give you.
I go now, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just sign somewhere, criminology documents.
Did you sign last time?
Yeah,
Last time we didn't.
You didn't sign.
we didn't sign.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be signing.
You signed.
You sent?
Yeah.
Ah.
You signed this.
Yeah.
Can you sign again?
Yeah. Yes, in front there.
Yeah. Can I put my name or just sign?
You submit, you already put your name, so just sign. Okay. So when you are going to Dumbani, maybe you can give him this thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to stop it now, isn't it?